Hello, everybody. What are you doing today? Good Monday, and welcome to Beyond the Booth. Let me just throw it over to Phil Harris, who's going to introduce our guests and get us started here. And you know what? I think this might be a vibrant show, Phil. So go ahead and pull it out.
Okay, well, we wanted to introduce our guest tonight. Of course, it's Steve King, of course, former Valley Head boys basketball coach, also girls basketball coach at Fife, but now retired. So, a lot of things different for you, Coach King. One thing about it, do you still miss coaching basketball?
Well, you get to miss it after you get out of it a little bit, yeah. But when you're in there, man, you're thinking, I don't know why I'm doing this. But yeah, you miss it. I miss it some. I get to go watch my grandkids play, and so they keep me pretty busy. I had help with a little pee wee team this year, so I still get some of it.
Well, Coach, just turn back the clock a little bit. Of course, you went to school at Ider, played football and basketball. You played basketball under Coach Harold Pope. Of course, I've talked to him frequently, and he and I talk a lot about you. But you played for him at Ider. Also played basketball at Jacksonville State. Tell us about your playing days.
Well, back in high school, we had a lot of success. Did play for Coach Pope, and my senior year, Coach Pope left and went to Fife, and Ronald Bell coached my team the senior year, and kind of a rebuilding year. We lost five seniors the year before, and a little bit tough rebuilding, but we went 15-3, I think, the senior year, and then I signed with Northeast out of high school. I played 2 years at Northeast. And then I walked on at Jacksonville and was fortunate enough to make the team. And we had a little success down there and graduated in 80. And
Phil, I think we dropped just for a second. Coach said he graduated in '80, and then he came to Valley Head to coach. I think we got Phil there back with us.
okay. All right.
Phil, you can you hear us again?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead, Phil. I'm
That's
sorry.
up at Jacksonville 80. And of course, yeah, Coach Pope, when I've talked to him several times, he told me back in your playing days, he said you were such a perfectionist. And so a lot of times on the basketball court, you would kind of sort of, you know, uh, get, a little over emotional sometimes, especially when you made a mistake and whatnot. And sometimes he just have to kind of sit you on the bench a few minutes, let you cool off, and then he get you back in the game. And he told me, he told me that some coaches would ask, well, how do you deal with Steve, when he gets, tore up like that and then gets back out on the floor? And Coach Pope told me the only thing I knew to tell him, he goes, I wished I had 12 Steve Kings. Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course, I don't know. I guess I've always been emotional, if you want to call it emotional. Some call it hot-head. I don't know what all they call it. But Coach Pope, he just pretty much, let me play. Did have one situation my junior year. We was playing Collinsville up at Ider, and Collinsville had started pressing us, and we wasn't really expecting them to press. And they stole the ball from me a couple of times, and he took me out of the game. And when I went out, he told me, said, just get down there on the end of that bench, and when you get ready to go back in and play, come up here and let me know. And so I sat there for a good while, and finally he came down there. He said, you're not coming back up here, are you? And I said, no. He said, well, get back in the game. And he never took me out again. So, but, I don't know. Sometimes I think emotions can make you play a little better, and sometimes they can interfere with you. And I guess Coach Pope just had to be a judge of whether it was helping me or hurting me at the time as to, how he would handle it.
Well, Coach, let's move on to, of course, you finished at Jacksonville. Your first head basketball coach job was at Valley Head. Of course, you come in about the same time Jerry Pullen did, Bill Burr did. You know, young coaches, of course, I experienced a lot of that. You guys were tough. You were young guys, and it was hard work, no compromise. Uh, Tell us about your time at Valley Head, because a lot of coaches will say one of the greatest places to coach is at Valley Head because it's just a great community.
Oh, it is. I mean, if I had it to go with again, never would have left that. At the time, I lived at 5 the whole time I was at Valley Head. And as you know, I would have to come down to your grocery store to eat, to get something to eat before games because it was just too far to go home. And but the community, it just has so much support, and it's still that way today, I think. But I know Coach Pullen and I, we got the job the same year, and it was only like a few days before school started that they made the hire. And of course, Coach Pullen had been coaching a few years and had been at Emma Sampson, and he had a clue about what he was doing. And I really didn't have a clue. But I know the first time after we got hired, we came in and met the next day. He said, "Come on." And I said, "Well, what are we doing?" He said, "Just come on, get in the truck." And we started riding the roads. We didn't have a lot of players out at the time. And we started knocking on doors, going house to house. And Coach Pullen was, he was talking. He was doing most of the talking. But after that little road trip, I don't remember how many players showed up. But a lot of players showed up, and came out for the team. And I guess, if he hadn't done that, we probably would have really suffered. But, we had a very young group there that first year, a lot of ninth graders playing, and had some success. And then the next year, I believe it was, we had a few more players come in and made us better. What did we go, 8-2 that year, I think?
It was 7-3.
And, of course, I got hired. I coached a little bit of everything. I had all the boys basketball, helped in football, did the junior high football. And the first year or so, I think I was assistant baseball coach. But as far as the basketball part goes, it was really tough to start with. Valley Head had lost 78 varsity games in a row when I went there, and of course I knew what I was getting into, but I needed a job, and so we just jumped right into football, and I really didn't do much checking into the basketball part. But when it come time for basketball, we didn't have any basketballs, short on uniforms, but had a good group of guys. There were 6 of them. Me and Roy Stalby was on the bench, when the game started, and but we won 11 games, the first year, and that kind of got us turned and got us started back on the right track.
Yeah, of course, of course, you went on to have better years, and we'll talk more about that. But, I can remember, Coach, back when you helped Coach Bill Bird in baseball, and you were, I never played for you in basketball, but you were a big influence on me because it was no nonsense. It was hard work. Anytime you were around, and you were always pushing, it didn't matter if you was on the football field, the basketball court, and if you helped out in baseball, because I can remember my sophomore year in baseball, I got a hit the first game against Fort Payne, and Coach Bird found a way to put me in the lineup. Well, I think we played Geraldine the second game, and we almost lost because he tried to get everybody in the play. And then he come in and said, "Hey, we're not doing this anymore. From now on, we're going to play to win." And I remember the next week in practice, he put me in the outfield. I was out in the outfield, and you put us through it. And you said the best 3 that ends up during the day today is going to start tomorrow. And you really put us through it. But the thing was, I appreciated about you is you really pushed us, and you didn't show any favoritism. I mean, if you needed a butt chewing, you gave it to us, and I appreciated that. And that's what, Coach Pullen always said too. He thought he was too hard on us. But you guys, and you was talking about the young players that y'all inherited when you first started. You made all of us mentally tougher, and I think that helped us and helped the athletic department, and really and truly probably helped us win a state championship in football.
Well, I'd like to think, some of that did help, and I was probably too hard on most occasions, but I've always pushed myself in probably the same manner, as I pushed you guys, and sometimes it was too much, and sometimes I think it did help. I remember the baseball team, Coach Bird, he played baseball at Jacksonville State, and he really knew what he was doing, and he knew how to work the teams. And one thing, too, I'll say this about all the coaches that I coached with at Valley Head. We had Coach Bullen, Coach Kirby, Coach Bird. They all let you coach. If you were helping them with their program, they wanted you to coach them. I remember the first practice, Coach Pullen, he said, take the defensive back. And I said, well, what do you want me to do with them? He said, I want you to make them better. And so, we go down and we start doing drills, things that I could remember from high school. But they all supported you. They all supported each other. Never had a football coach during the years that I was there, that ever interfered with anything. When it's basketball season, they let it be basketball season. And when it was baseball season, they let it be baseball season. And they just, they were good to work with, a lot of support. And I think we hit it at the right time, really. We had really good kids, really good athletes, and they came from Mentone, Sulphur Springs, Valley Head. We had players coming from all the different areas there. And, it just made it easier to win because of the caliber of players that we had. And like you said, I think they all wanted to be coached. I think they wanted to win. And basically it started with that group of ninth graders. But, they were men. By the time they become seniors, they had really been through it. And they just refused to lose. During the state championship football run, there was 2 or 3 games that we had every opportunity to get beat, but the players just wouldn't let it happen. It's just nothing like experience, in my opinion.
Well, Coach, before we move on to basketball, and I want to share a story with you. You mentioned about football, so that kind of sort of hit me on this one. I wanted to mention to you to see if you remembered. I remember in the second round of the playoffs when we played Sandrock. And of course, you always helped in football, but Coach Kirby would mainly run most of the show and whatnot. But you contributed in a lot of areas. But I can remember the night we beat Sandrock, and you walked onto the bus and said you wanted to say a word to us, and you went to speaking about how that all during the football season you weren't really all in, that you was mainly the basketball coach and you just trying to contribute. But you said that night, for what you saw in the second half of that game against Sandrock, you basically stood up and told us, I'm all in from now on. And when we ended the speech, every one of us was just kind of looking at each other going, hey, this guy likes us. Coach King actually does care and he does like us. And at the end of the speech, you came out and said, thank goodness we don't have basketball practice tomorrow. And just the bus just erupted, and that meant a lot to us. And, you bought in to what we had. And we were a bunch of goof offs. I mean, we really were. I mean, I know you told me several times, guys, Phil, you're fixing to get your butt beat, because it just seemed like, and we were kind of carefree. But once we walked on that field, it was all business. And I'm sure you saw a lot of that.
That's what I'm saying. Y'all were a hard group to keep up with. You had to keep an eye out for you and keep a thumb on everybody. But like you said, when it come time to play, we trusted you. We trusted the players to go take care of business and do what they needed to do. And like I said, the coaches, Coach Kirby, he gave me, he gave me reign to coach, and he had to have trust, in the players and in the people that were having. And we was talking. I guess I got off a little bit off of basketball. We started talking a little baseball there and stuff, but basketball. I had two Bain boys, and they wasn't gonna let you lose. Scott Tate, Mark Miller, Bill Stanley. I can go on. I'll probably forget some people along the way, but there's a lot of times they didn't like it, but they'd come to practice and they'd do what I asked. Sometimes I had to force them pretty hard to get it out of them, but I guess it was the second year we won the junior high county tournament with that group. The third year I had to pull some B team players up to play varsity ball, so the B team came in second in the county that year, and then the next year we won the varsity county championship, beat Crossville at Collinsville, and won the area, and then everybody got sick. We had the sub-state game coming to Fife, and everybody got the flu, and we played Madison Academy at Fife, and they came in and froze the ball, and we tried to chase. We just couldn't do much good, and we finally got ahead, went ahead by 1 point, and had a timeout, and went back to set up. Well, I put a sub in, and I didn't tell him where he was going to play, and we didn't have anybody back, and we fouled them, and they made 2 foul shots to win by 1 point. We were ranked number 5 in the state at that time. So, we had some good years.
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, I remember when I first got to Fathead, you had Steve Hawkins and Neil Cash and Jeff Manning. They all were pretty competitive. I think they won 7 or 8 games. That was my sophomore year. And the thing is they were in every game. Rarely ever did they get blown out, but they were competitive in every game. And like you were talking about Jeff and John Bain, I remember the county finals at Collinsville when they went and played against Mitch Rice and Gary Bolden, were both sophomores. And that was some more basketball game. And I remember during just here recently during the county tournament, Heath Thrash and I, Coach Thrash was Neil Thrash, actually, we're talking about that. And he said that was one of the best basketball teams he had ever seen. I know you finished 20-3 that year, because I remember I just went to just about every game. But that game down at Collinsville was something else. Jeff and John Bain took over that fourth quarter, and it was amazing to watch that game. That was one of the best high school basketball games I've ever saw as a fan. And, of course, you alluded to the game against Madison Academy, the young man that hit the winning foul shot. You could tell we were screaming. The foul came at the buzzer, so really you didn't know if the buzzer had went off or not. But he hit the free throw, and you could tell he was nervous because the ball slipped into the palm of his hand, and he just threw it toward the basket, and it banked in. And it was just disheartening so bad because that was such a great basketball team.
Well, they were winners, like you said. John Bain, Jeff Bain, Scott Tate, they just weren't going to let you. They just weren't going to let you lose. They were such competitors, and they practiced just like they played. They kill each other in practice, and I don't know. I don't know that I ever coached him. John Bain was so small, but man, he could play. He had 28 points in that championship game against Crossville. He had 28 points. And if you looked at Crossville, like you were talking about, they were huge. There was no should have been in the game in everybody's mind but ours. We knew what we could do, and we knew how we was going to handle it. And they just went out and won the ball game.
Yeah, it was amazing. That fourth quarter was just amazing. And, of course, last time I talked to John, he wanted me to tell you hello. And he said, boy, I tell you one thing. He said, I like Coach King, but, man, he worked my tail off. And he said but he didn't give me a break whatsoever. And I said, well, I told him, I said, well, John, I said, you probably didn't need much of a break. I said, if you got out of line at all, it was trouble most of the time.
You got that right. And tell him that his mother told me not to take it easy on him anyway back in the day. You talked to, I guess I'll throw this in. We talked a little bit earlier about the community. There was never a better supporter than Joanne Bain, for anybody at Valley Head. If you needed something, all you had to do was, let her know. She'd go take care. She'd raise money. She'd do whatever. And there was a lot of others, that would help her. But she was just like her kids. The whole family was just good supporters, big supporters. And I guess I'm jumping around a little bit, but one story, it goes back to football again and the state championship year, but you'll remember this. At one point, they had talked about not letting Valley Head host any games because they didn't have a field house at the football field downtown. And well, word got out. Make a long story short, that community got together. They went and they bought the material. They laid the block, and all this took place in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and they had a field house done. That's the kind of community support that Valley Head had then, and I'm sure they still do. I know you see this, but Charles Robert Hammonds is back down there, and they couldn't have a better coach, for what they have, and he's really turned the program again and got such support, and I wanted to brag on him a minute also.
Yeah, naturally, of course, Ralph and Ronnie were a big part in getting that, getting the community together and getting that locker room built, because we had to have it to host a playoff game. And, and Coach Hammond wanted me to pass on to you. He said, there's not a better coach around. And one of the, one of the all-time coaches I liked better was Coach King. So, his admiration of you is also good. So, he wanted me to pass that on to you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I see him every once in a while, but man, he's just and I wish I was more like him. He's such a positive guy. The kids just react so well to him.
Well, Coach, what I don't really remember all this. When you left Valley Head, what was the reason for leaving in Valley Head? Was a teaching job somewhere else?
I went 5, and we had lived in 5. I was at Valley Head for 8 years, and the first year we had a trailer up in Henniger. We lived there, and then we started building a house down here, so we moved to 5. For 7 years, I was driving back and forth from 5, to Valley Head, and then Coach Poe decided to not coach basketball anymore at 5. So I went out and interviewed for that job and got it. So, like I said, I'd probably been better off if I'd have stayed at Valley Head, for my whole career. But I just felt like it would be a lot simpler, when we had a daughter at the time, and it was just a whole lot handier.
Yeah.
To go to 5.
Yeah, I understand. Of course, that's Shay. Of course, I want to talk to you a little bit about your family a little bit here in just a little bit. I just wanted to, of course, you quit coaching boys basketball, then you got back out and started coaching girls basketball, and you had some good teams at 5.
Yeah, we did. I coached the boys the first 3 years out there, and then I got out of coaching or whatever, and I helped in softball and a few other sports. And Coach Cochran, was at 5, and Lord, everybody knows how successful he was. My daughter, had the opportunity to play for Coach Cochran, and he decided to get out of coaching, and I believe Tony Bell took it over after Coach Cochran, and I don't remember how many years he coached it. And then he decided they offered him a job in the central office. And the principal came down to the gym one day and was talking that, what was taking place. And I don't know that many people were really interested in coaching the girls at that time. And I don't know why I said it, but I said, I'll take it. And so he gave it to me. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know why, but I coached junior high. I helped with the junior high in 2015. And then this took place in 2016. I coached varsity girls for 4 years. We won 105 games and lost 22 in that period of time. And went to Jacksonville 3 times and went to Birmingham twice. And came in runner-up the last time we went down there. And then when COVID hit in 2020, I had already put my retirement papers in. I'd been teaching and coaching for 39 years. I was just ready to go home.
Yeah, I understand that. So you just all said I was going to ask you, when did you decide it was time? I guess, it just hit you all of a sudden. Of course, you had, and you had great success. And Coach Polk told me the biggest thing that with you, Coach, and I'm sure you took pride in this. He said he said you was a great teacher in school. You expected a lot of the kids, and you made them do what they were supposed to do. He said I think the school system benefited from Coach King being a teacher more than they did a basketball coach.
Well, that's awful nice of Coach Pope, and it makes you feel good when people do say good things about your teaching. That was the thing. When I first went to Valley Head there, I taught senior high English the whole time I was there, and I had some PE classes too. And then the last 4 years, I guess it was 4 years, 3 years. I taught English again at 5, and enjoyed it. I don't feel like I was the best English teacher for them, but they needed somebody in junior high English, and so they put me back in there. But I always did take pride in, if I was going to teach a class, I wanted to teach the class, and I wanted everybody's attention. I wanted people to to do what I asked them to do, and and most people, I have had a lot of people come back over the years and say, I want to thank you for, the way you taught in the classroom. And I appreciate Coach Pope, bringing that up.
Yeah, it's definitely, he a lot of times when I've talked to Coach Pope, he's told, because he's known you for years, and he tells me, he's told me a lot of things when he and I talk. You and him, you always come up in conversation a lot of times. We talked a little bit during the Jackson County tournament when I was over there doing radio over there. He was over there, and we talked a good bit, and you was part of the conversation over there. And of course, Coach, been in this a long time now. Of course, I want to share one thing. I remember one day that you was really upset at John Bain. And this is a story that was funny, but back, you always have been a big country music fan, and you never cared much for rock music. And of course, John and all them, naturally, back at that time, everybody liked the pop rock scene. But I remember that John used to play jokes on, one thing he did, he always told you that, of course, Def Leppard was one of the big rock groups back then, but he always told you they were Def Lizard. And you would always refer to that sometimes because you would kind of make fun of, people liking rock music because you like country. And I always thought you was just being sarcastic, but John had told you that. And then you found out one day that John had been lying to you all that time, and you was really upset with him. It was so funny to hear you. I'd be danged if he didn't tell me that was the name of that group. And all this time, I've always thought that. Do you remember it? You remember him doing that to you?
Yeah, I mean, the boy, he just messed with you all the time.
Yeah.
If he was being serious or not serious. There's no telling. There's a lot of times they probably tricked me and never told me, that they were tricking me. So they pulled one on me one time during basketball practice. I did my student teaching out at Plains, and I saw Coach Mitchell a couple of times. He'd pull this little stunt. He'd tell them he's tired of fooling with them to go get your clothes on and go home. Well, he'd give them couple of minutes, and then he'd go running in, and I changed my mind, get back out here. Well, I thought, okay, that worked okay for him, so I'm going to try that here. And we was practicing one morning, and I had the Bain boys and Mark Miller and all that bunch. So I told them, I said, listen, we're wasting our time. Just go to the dressing room, get your clothes on, and go home. Well, I gave them a couple of minutes, sent them in, went in, told them to come on back out. I've changed my mind. Well, it worked so good that time. Later on in the year, I thought, well, I'm going to try that again. Well, I sent them to the dressing room. Well, they tricked me. If you remember, that dressing room had a side door back there in the hall. They didn't even take any time to get their clothes. They just grabbed everything up and they all went out the back door. And when I went to get them, there was nobody there.
Yeah, John had told me about that story. He said, hey, we slipped out the back door before you could come in and get us. Coach Kirby did that to us one time. He got mad at us and run us into the dressing room. Well, hey, we better get out of here before he changes his mind. So we didn't even shower. We didn't go. So, yeah, Coach Kirby tried to pull that on us one time, but I think he was really mad at us. He didn't come after us. He sent us home. So, yeah, they were telling me about that, and I thought that was funny. Of course,
Yeah.
That's the kind of stories you think you was probably mad at the time, but then you just have to kind of laugh about it. There ain't much you can do.
I had to give them credit for it. They were slick, and I'm sure it was John Bain's idea.
You think? So, yeah. Well, Coach, I want to move on, talk a little bit about, of course, you've talked about Shay. She's, I think, a teacher at Plainview now, and you've got a granddaughter that's actually is dressing with a varsity, and they play tomorrow down at Birmingham. And, boy, Plainview girls got a great basketball team. I saw them during the county tournament, and, of course, you didn't know how that game with Susan Moore was going to go because Susan Moore is very good, too. And I kind of expected them to have trouble with them. But this Plainview girls basketball team is pretty darn good.
They are. I mean, they've got some really good shooters. They got about 3 girls there. The 2 of them just don't miss from outside. And they're hard to guard. And then this Cammie Sanders, that plays inside. I don't know if you watched anything at Jacksonville, but she just came to life down there, and I think she had over 20 points in both games at Jacksonville and ended up being the MVP. But, Coach Greg does a great job, and they've got a junior varsity team that's, I don't know, they haven't been beat, I don't think, in 2 years, really, and they play 4A, 5A, 6A schools all the time, hardly ever play anybody around here. But, they play tomorrow. I don't know how that game will go. You mentioned the Susan Moore team. They have a really good team too, and they had 2 or 3 girls come out and start hitting 3-pointers the other day. I thought Plainview was going to kind of ease on out to maybe a 15-point lead, and this one girl came out and hit, I think, 3 threes in a row and brought the game back, and it was a competitive game the whole time. But my granddaughter, she's in the 9th grade, and she plays volleyball and runs cross country and plays basketball. And she looks like her mama, and she plays like her mama, and she don't like to get beat like her mama used to either. So Shay coaches their junior varsity team that Jackson plays on. Does a really good job there. She's not like me. She's real calm, laid back, like her mama.
Well, of course, I wanted to ask you about Shay. Of course, I was wondering if you see a lot of her in you, other than being the laid back style. I know she was a great basketball player in high school, and I think she went to West Alabama and finished school, and now she's, teaching. And of course, you was talking about her teaching or coaching at the JV level. Does she inspire to maybe be a head coach at the varsity level someday, or is she kind of enjoying what she's doing now?
Well, I can't really speak for her, but I don't really feel like she really has any aspirations to be a varsity coach. Now, I said that, and she may turn around next year and, make me eat my words. But she's always been pretty satisfied. She coached my junior high teams when I was at 5, and won the county every year. And she's won the county every year, I think, that she's been at Plainview coaching. She, I think she's satisfied. She's got 2 boys also, and both of them, love sports, love ball, and they all live at the ball field, football field, or back at the gym or something all the time. Her husband, Brad, he coaches football at Plainview. So I think they're all pretty happy doing what they're doing. They live up there in Rainsville now. Now she don't show her emotions. I think she's probably got a lot churning inside her body, like maybe I did, but she never shows her emotions. She never gets loud, and the kids react to her. She never raises her voice, but and she seems to be able, to get the best out of her players that way. It works.
Of course, she's got Jackson and also Jet and Jake, and I'm sure. I guess she is probably enjoying more of the family, about bringing them up more than she would be in coaching. At the varsity level, because that takes a lot of your time. And now that you have retired, coach, and you can kind of sit back. Of course, you've got 5 grandchildren now. I know Evan, don't he live down toward Birmingham, and he's got 2. Do you enjoy sports and all a whole lot more and being a lot more supportive, and it's not quite as intense for you to be able to support your grandkids? It's kind of a different way of supporting kids.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. And, man, they don't like me to try to coach them much anyway. They don't like me to tell them a whole lot. And I don't blame them. But I did help this year with Jake's 5th grade basketball team. And I go in the gym and I probably expect too much and I probably ask too much. But that's just the way I am. That's just the way I see it. Of course, Shay, she was the main coach. I had to practice them a lot this year, but because she had ball games and stuff. But they did well. Jet, he'll start school at kindergarten next year at Plainview, and I think that's another thing. We was talking about whether Shay wanted to be a varsity coach. They love it at Plainview. They don't want to teach anywhere else. They don't want to go to school anywhere else. And so I think they're satisfied and content, doing what they're doing. She does coach the cross-country team. They started that. Of course, Jackson's had a lot of success with cross-country. Where Plainview's moving to 4A next year, and I think everything's going to be a little tougher next year for everybody. We'll have to bear down a little bit.
Yeah, because I know when you start getting to that 4A level, a lot of schools are very competitive. It seems like in 4A, schools are either football schools or basketball schools, and the ones that are basketball schools are very good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to be very competitive, and too, right now, I think you have a lot of the schools, like Prattville Christian. A lot of the Christian schools seem to be in 4A now, and they tell me they don't recruit, but doggone it, I believe they do.
Yeah, we just have to play with what we got. Of course, like one person told me, I won't tell you, but at Plainview right now, the kids are. Coach Gregg's got a great thing going because kids are coming to Plainview. They want to play girls basketball at Plainview, and this person told me that a lot of these kids that come to Plainview are from a lot of areas, but they know how to play basketball when they get there. And of course, Coach Griggs, at the varsity level has been very successful. And this helps all the way down because Plainview is very good especially in girls basketball from all age groups.
They are. Yeah. Got a lot of kids out. And like you said, there have been kids, that's moved in from other schools around. And like you said, I don't know. They just want to come and be a part of it. And I do. I feel for for the schools that they're leaving. It hurts. It hurts their program, and and I hate to see it because I've had it happen when I was coaching before. I just I don't know what you can do or what you can say, but I know there's girls that's come from Jackson County and DeKalb County, and maybe some from even from Fort Payne, that came and did it the legal way and went to Plainview and have been very successful.
Yeah, that's well, Coach. Looking back, of course, a lot of times kids played athletics, especially when you first started. It was just a pride thing. Uh, you know, there was a lot of things going on, but people took a lot of pride in sports. Nowadays, it's kind of it's different because kids have so many other options. But to you, how important is it for kids today to play competitive sports? I see it. I know it's important because a lot of times these kids, lacking a lot of social areas that sports gives them now. Uh, Socially, I think it really helps kids to play competitive sports.
Oh yeah, definitely. I, I feel the same way. I know some people would probably argue with me about it, but when I see kids, they don't have any direction. School's out. They come to school in the morning. They just kind of muddle their way through, and 3 o'clock, school's out. They're going home, getting on the phone, the iPads, or whatever it is they do. I'm not up on all that stuff, the Twitter or whatever it is they do, and they just don't have a lot of direction. I think it's good, for a kid to know that, hey, I got practice after school, and I'm going to be at practice for 2.5 hours, and I'm going to have to do the right things. I'm going to have to, be disciplined in it. I got to go home and get my homework done. Some of them don't worry about homework, but a lot of them do. It makes them plan their time. They have to be able to use their time wisely. And I'm a sportsman. I believe that play all you can, and I believe it's going to help you down the road when you do.
Yeah, definitely. So I agree with you there. That's like I tell everyone I see, and you know, I'm involved a lot with the community and whatnot. And I tell these kids, cherish every moment. This don't last. Winning a state championship is important, but the biggest thing is making memories. Like, and I've told people this several times. We won the state championship, and I walked off that field and I looked up at the scoreboard. I thought, this is my last game. I'll never do this again. But then I got to thinking, this wasn't what this was all about. This was about friendships and relationships, and the memories made is a lot more important than anything.
Sure. You see people every day that you played with and went to school with, I'm sure. You talk to them. You see them out at ball games. It's people that you would do anything, you do anything for. The guys that you played with that had your back, and you still have their back today. It's I don't know. It's kind of like a fraternity, I guess you can say. You have people, they're in the band. Well, those people stick together. Cheerleaders, they stick together. They remember each other 20 years after school's out. And it is a lot of friendship and just taking care of each other.
Well, Coach, one thing I want to ask you about your wife, Melissa. She's had to been a trooper all these years. I've even heard people say that Coach King outkicked his coverage on her. But Melissa, she's always been a great supporter of you, and and I think the world of her when I see her. But you have to give a lot of credit to her because coaching basketball takes away from home, and she had to raise kids, and of course I'm sure she's enjoying raising grandkids now when she gets the opportunity to be with them.
Oh yeah, she I don't know how she's put up with me for 43 years. She is a tough one, but She understands sports. She's been around it her whole life. She went to school at 5. She was a cheerleader, played softball at 5. She's just a really good person, and she can work with anybody. She can handle anybody. She was a juvenile probation officer for 30 years, and we would go to Walmart in Scottsboro, and we couldn't go through Walmart without 5 kids coming up, and hugging her neck. And I'd say, well, who was that? Well, that's somebody I had on probation. And I said, and they're coming to hug your neck? But she just has a way with people. I tried to get her to get into politics, but she's smarter than that. But she, when I took the 5 girls job, I just blurted it out. I didn't say anything to her. I didn't ask her. And I came home that evening and I said, well, I'm girls coach. Okay, why'd you do that? Okay, we'll do it. And so she's always kept the book and took care of things like that. And we haven't mentioned Evan. We did say Birmingham, lives in Chelsea, and he's a first assist in the surgical room in Birmingham. But the reason I brought him up, he's a lot like his mom. He's pretty laid back, pretty calm, and makes good decisions. And they got all that from the mom. Everything that I could tear down, she'd have to come behind me and build it back up with it. Because I brought too much of it home, but she usually took care of it. She'd straighten me out, make me shut up finally. So.
Yeah. Of course, speaking about Evan, of course, he's in the medical field. Of course, my wife's in the medical field, but, I owe so much of a debt to UAB Hospital down there when I went through my liver transplant. Folks down there are just great. It's amazing how the UAB Hospital has grown, and the medical field has been so good, especially to me, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a liver transplant. But, people in the medical field, I admire greatly. And of course, I think Evan he moved to, I think at one time I run into, he had moved to Atlanta because you was up there trying to help him move over there. And then he ended up back in Chelsea now. But, he was a pretty good ball player in his own right.
He was. He liked football more than he did basketball. And, they got to go to the state playoffs and got beat in the finals his senior year. He liked basketball, but football was always his favorite. Played baseball, but he's in the medical field. When he went to the University of Alabama. When he got out of Alabama, he got married. They moved to Nashville. Stayed in Nashville a couple of years, and then they moved to Atlanta. And they moved to 3 different places in Atlanta. And that brings up another story. I can't even remember the name, but we had moved him. We were in the process of moving him to Sewanee, Georgia, and was moving everything in. And we was out on the front yard, and he said he was waiting for the satellite dish man to come. And we're standing out there, and here comes the truck up the road, and the guy. I wish I could remember the name, but the guy had his head hanging out the window saying, "Hey, you're Coach King. I remember you. You paddled me every day at Valley Head." And, you run across people everywhere you go that seem to know you.
Yeah.
Somebody.
Was that your brother, Phil?
My brother lives in Swanee. He still does.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's just make
satellite dish man.
No, he wasn't satellite dish man, but he lives in Swanee. So, but he was probably over there at the time when Evan was over there. I would imagine they may have crossed paths somewhere and didn't know each other.
Well, it was a nice, and I have trouble remembering names sometimes, but it was just so strange and so funny. And then they moved from Georgia to Birmingham, and they've moved 3 times, I think, in Birmingham. But they've ended up in Chelsea now, and have 2 kids, have a boy and a girl, and of course they're playing everything in the world. Evan's starting to see now how much time it takes, to get them to all these places. But that's what they do.
Well, all these grandkids, they still have Pop to lean on, don't they? Anytime they need you, right?
Well, it's just like today. One of them got sick. Melissa had to go. We had ordered 3 yards of concrete to pour out here. She called me right before the truck came and said, got to go take Jake to the doctor. So I did the concrete by myself, and she had to go take care of him.
Yeah.
What our job is, I think we're supposed to take care of them.
We got to spoil them too. Make their moms and dads pay for their raising. You got to spoil them just a little bit.
That's Melissa's job. She does that spoiling thing.
Yeah.
Hey, we
We
got
I want to tell you one story. I remember when you went back to coaching girls basketball at 5. It kind of surprised me. I was out working one time, and every once in a while, when I worked Patriot route, I saw Melissa in a store one day, and I asked her, and I said, well, Coach got back into coaching. She goes, yeah. She goes, I don't really know why he did that. And I said, well, as I said, he calmed down a little bit? Is he enjoying it more, or is he, or is he just as intense? She looked at me. She says, well, she goes, I think he appreciates it more, but Steve is still Steve. And she just smiled at me. And I just thought that was the funniest thing because, you know, you are still that intense coach, expect the best out of everybody. And she let me know right fast, he is still Steve.
Hey,
well, yeah.
Speaking of
I don't
fight,
think it's
we got a question from the clock operator, the famous Howie Cheney at 5, and he wanted to ask you a question, Coach.
okay.
He from Mr. Cheney, he goes, I never saw your team win one jump ball go your way the whole time you've been coaching. Wonder why that is.
The possession error, I think, is what he's talking about. My wife used to get on to me. Every time there was a jump ball, I'd look over, and it was always the other team's ball. I'd say, when are we going to get any jump balls? And, of course, Howie kept the clock at 5, and there's never been a better clock keeper than Howie. But, yeah, they always thought that was kind of funny. They'd look, both of them look at me and laugh because they knew I was going to look over there every time. And, of course, they had it right, but that's just always the way I felt. You got to get some possessions every once in a while.
Go ahead, Phil.
Okay, well, Coach, all the successes you've had in coaching, do you have any regrets, or or just everything, I've always looked back and people ask me, have you? I said, no, I've never had any regrets. It is what it is, and God put me where He wanted me to be. And you said that you might, would have stayed at Valley Head longer, but I know the people here. When you left here, a lot of folks, miss having you here, especially the people that played and were associated with you, because I appreciate what you did for us. Even though I didn't play basketball, I enjoyed being around you. You were always inspiring. You were always positive. Now, you might be yelling at us sometimes, but, we took to the criticism, and I told Coach Pullen the same thing. I know you were hard on us, but don't sell yourself short, because you made us mentally tough as people. And, you carry that into life. It goes throughout life, because coaches and teachers are so inspiring to others. And sometimes I think they forget that.
Yeah. Well, to answer the first part of the question, I have a lot of regrets, over the years. There's a lot of things that I did wrong. There's a lot of things that I could have done differently or wished I would have done differently and maybe handle the situations in a different way. But, when I first started at Valley Head, like I said, I didn't really have a clue, how to handle situations. I knew basketball, or I thought I knew some basketball. But I don't know. I think anybody that's been around coaching, if they tell you that they don't have any regrets, I don't think they're being honest with themselves. I wish that I could have maybe had situations where I didn't get as emotional or I didn't get mad about it, but and still today, when I got back into coaching, I thought, I'm not going to do like I did before. I'm not going to handle everything like I did before. But guess what? I did. I get fired up. I get on to the referee sometimes, and that don't help. They just get you. Get on to the players when sometimes maybe I wished I hadn't, or maybe I'd have handled it, maybe a pat on the back or something. But that's just never been me. I don't reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have things I wish I'd have done differently.
Well, but Coach, on the other side of the coin, though, I guess you have many players and people you're associated with that come back and thank you for what you did for them. Because I'm guaranteed there's a whole lot more pluses than minuses.
Oh yeah, there is, and I see people from time to time, and I've had some people. I had 2 people come to my house, at different times. And maybe we had a situation, and they came and apologized that they were wrong, I was right, but you don't have that all the time. But there's situations that I see people, and they'll tell you, hey, I want to thank you, for what you did, and for you made me better, and I'll appreciate you for that. And you just it makes you feel good when you have that happen.
Yeah. Well, Randy, is there any questions you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to ask you one question, Coach King. You talk a lot about your career. What do you like to do outside of basketball and teaching and coaching?
Work. That's all I do is work. When even back when in the younger days, I coach, I teach. I came home, I go build barns for people. I've built a lot of barns. Then I got into building wreck cars. I built wreck cars. Then I got 60 head of cattle. I do my own hay. We just spent the last 2 years, Melissa and I, building our own house, basically. So I don't have hobbies. I don't play golf. I don't like to fish because it's not enough action in fishing for me. We don't travel. We just we work. I tried golf, but I kept getting poison oak because I spent all my time in the woods hunting the fall. Just wasn't for me.
Coach, I guess there is such thing. My dad was that way. When he left work, he would come home, and he was big into scrap medaling and also doing yard sales and I mean, he loved it, and it would just wear you to death. But he enjoyed that side of life, and he felt like he accomplished something.
That's it. Same here. Your dad and I probably had the same idea about that. I always had to have something going on, I think. Some challenge, something new to challenge me over the years. And there was a lot of times at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'd forget where I was at. I'd be out working on a wreck car, and I thought, I got to go to bed. I got to go to school tomorrow and do this and do that. I can't sit around. I don't sit in the house. I just can't stand sitting and waiting for something to happen. I have to go make something happen.
That sounds like a life lived full, though. So, Phil, I'll turn it back over to you, Coach. We appreciate having you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anytime you want to come, or you want to do some radio work, will you just let us know? We'll put you to work here.
Sounds good, man. I may do that.
You anytime. Phil, wrap us up, please.
Okay, well, Coach, we sure do appreciate you coming on, and I learned so much from you, and I enjoy having folks like you on because you learn so much and you learn some stories, and this is the kind of thing I like. It isn't all about basketball; it's about people and relationships, and it's good to hear about your family and all that, and you're able to share that because you kind of live life through them now. Those grandkids, I'm sure, are very important to you now, and they make life worthwhile.
That's right. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you, Phil. I appreciate you. You've always gone out of your way if you see me out. You've always gone out of your way to come speak to me, have conversations. I listen to you on the radio during football season, and I'm glad your health is doing good now. And and I hope things keep going good for you health wise.
Yeah, well, I sure appreciate it. It's unreal how much better I am after the liver transplant I had, and I owe so much to everybody else. But it makes me appreciate things every day. Like Randy talked to me into start doing this podcast. I didn't know that I would enjoy it, and I didn't realize how many people I have met over the years that have, they have their own story, and it's always great to hear from them. So we appreciate you coming on and sharing a little time with us. And maybe down the road we can have you again.
All right, sounds good, man.
Well, thank you, Coach King. Phil,
Thank y'all.
Coach, you got anything else you want to close up with?
Oh, me, I'm done. I've talked too much already. I didn't really think I'd talk this much, but I can't shut up.
That's all right, Coach. You welcome here anytime.
All right, I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
All right, see y'all.
Phil, that was. I sat back and I listened to that interview. Didn't say a whole lot, but it may be my favorite interview we ever did.
Yeah, well, Coach King has a lot to tell, a lot of stories to tell, and these coaches and teachers, I think they don't realize sometimes how many lives they touch.
Yeah.
Uh, and I know they do because I've been around them. They inspired me over the years. There's so many that have over the years. Coach Pullen, Coach King, Coach Burt, Coach Kirby. The coaches I had at Valley Head. Plus, there was ones way before that when I was younger. They made us all better people, and you take a little bit of each one of them, and they're a part of you, and that's what makes it interesting. That's why I like about this is it's more about a basketball game. Coach King coached a lot of basketball games, but there's a whole lot more lessons to be learned than just a basketball game or a football game or assistant baseball. It's about life's lessons, and and it's great to have people like him on.
Howie, and next week's guest, I think, has got a good story to tell too. A very young coach, but one that just made a real hard move, I'm sure, for him, and we'll have him on here for the first time, and that's new Scottsboro football coach Tyler Van, who I've got a previous relationship with. We've done the Tyler Van show with for years, and it's going to be good to hear Coach Van again. I've missed talking to him a lot.
Yeah. Of course, it's a challenge. Going over to Scottsboro to a little bit of a different world, but football is football. They're the same kids. You coach the same way. It don't change. It don't change any at all. It's just the people you play will be different.
Yeah,
Uh, because when you get up to that 5A level, you go against a lot of athletes. So you've got to find what your team's good at, and you got to find that edge. And, at 2 and 3A level, sometimes you can out physical or outwork people. When you get to that 5A level, it's a little bit different world. You got to really prepare yourself, but you don't know what you got coming at you because it's so competitive as you get to those higher classes.
well, and next week we'll have him here with us. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, Howie Cheney and I have new Sylvania coach on the first ever edition of the Rams football show with Coach Nelson. So tomorrow at 4, you'll flip into RiverCity-Media. You'll get a little introduction to Coach Nelson, and hopefully we'll get him on here one night.
Yeah.
And as we get through spring, maybe, and talk to him a little bit about his background. So I know I've had a lot of inquiry what we're going to do come this fall, but we plan on continuing the Rams football show with Howie and myself and Coach Nelson. Going into this fall, we kind of got the red light to go with it. So I'm excited. I'm excited to maintain the relationship with Sylvania and get to know Coach Nelson.
Yeah, Coach, he's very bright. I've talked to him a couple of times during media days when he's at Collinsville because he was helping Coach Ernie Willingham. Says all the right things, very bright coach, good offensive mind. I think he's going to do well for Sylvania. It's going to be interesting to hear him. Good speaker. I think you're going to enjoy him having you on your show. But looking forward to seeing what the job he does at Sylvania. Of course, like I told people before, it seems every coach that comes into Sylvania, it seems like they are successful because it's just so community oriented and community supported, that another coach just comes in and just kind of continues it on. So, I don't see Sylvania falling flat on their face, and I think they picked a good one.
And Howie had his first face to face with Coach Nelson, and he talked about how he reminded him of Coach Van. Smart, offensive minded. A lot of the qualities that made Coach Van a success at Sylvania, I think we're going to get in Coach Nelson. So it'd be nice to see that program to continue to grow. And of course, you got a 2,000-yard rusher coming back in Aiden Farm. So it's not bad to start the football team there.
Yeah, of course, he coached under a good one, and Ernie Willingham. So I'm sure he's going to come in ready to go. A young coach, and of course, that's what you get nowadays. You're going to get these young coaches, but it's good for Coach Van to get to move on to do something
Yeah.
different. But Sylvania's going to be just fine.
At week 7, Collinsville at Sylvania, and they're going to want to beat Coach Nelson coming to the Ram House.
Oh, definitely so. That will be one to go see anyway. Of
Yes,
course,
it will.
Because we've got, we are blessed, Randy. We've got some great coaches down here in Northeast Alabama, football and basketball. Of course, our basketball teams are doing great. Spring Garden won today. Ider's playing now down in the Final Four. So, sports down here in Northeast Alabama is held in high regard. So it's a whole lot of fun. And you heard Coach King talk about, Fife, they expect to win at everything. So, when he coached there, Plainview, they expect to win at everything. But it's great. It's we have a lot of interest in sports around here in high school sports, and that's what I guess that helps our show a little bit, because everybody wants to know what everybody's doing.
Absolutely. And I run across, I've got it, I don't have it scheduled yet because we kind of got the next couple of weeks booked. But I run across Coach Rivers at Hickson, and he was talking about wanting to come on the show and talk about Hickson football. So we'll have Coach Rivers on in the next couple of months or next month or so. Heading into spring, probably. We've got so many people scheduled for that springtime that
Yeah.
we'll probably talk football all spring, but be nice to get some basketball guys in next few weeks.
Yeah.
Also, last week's show at Gadsden State, Coach Clark at Gadsden State, we got real good feedback from Gadsden State and wanting us to do some other stuff, maybe have some basketball and coaches on, maybe some baseball coaches down the road. So
We may
we
have to
got,
start doing this a couple of days a week.
yeah, we can. Hey, that sounds like a winner. So for Phil Harris, I'm Randall Cunningham, QB1, and this is Monday night, and we'll see you next week with Coach Tyler Van from Scottsboro.